Welcome to Kaziranga National Park, Part 2. Our focus in this segment will be entirely on the avian species to occur in this natural realm. We begin with the great hornbill, also known as the great Indian hornbill. This colorful and large bird species, measuring as long as 44 inches from the tip of the beak to the end of the tail, occurs in India as well as Bhutan, Cambodia, China, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Nepal, and Thailand. Great hornbills inhabit moist, dense, old-growth, that is to say unlogged, forests in hilly regions. Great hornbills are social birds that live in small groups of 2 to 40 individuals. They are usually seen in small parties, with larger groups sometimes aggregating at fruit trees. As frugivores, the great hornbill diet consists mainly of fruit, especially different types of figs. These birds also occasionally feed on small mammals, birds, small reptiles, and insects. Great hornbills are monogamous and form long-lasting pair bonds. During the breeding season, which takes place from January to April, these birds become very vocal. The female builds a nest in the hollow of a large tree trunk, sealing the opening with a plaster made up mainly of feces. She remains imprisoned there, relying on the male to bring her food until the chicks are half developed. During this period, the female undergoes a complete molt. The clutch consists of 1 to 2 eggs, which she incubates for 38 to 40 days. The chicks are altricial. They are hatched helpless, have no feathers, and appear very plump. The female usually leaves the nest before the young fledge and seals the entrance again. Both parents continue feeding their offspring until they fledge at about 72 to 96 days after hatching. At this time, the chicks become fully independent. According to the IUCN Red List, as of 2024, the total great hornbill population is approximately 20,000 to 49,999 individuals. Currently, this species is classified as vulnerable, and its numbers today are decreasing. The Indo-China roller occurs widely from eastern India to China and Southeast Asia. It is listed as least concern on the IUCN Red List. It is a stocky bird. The crown and vent are blue. The tail is sky blue with a terminal band of Prussian blue, and the central feathers are dull green. The neck and throat are purplish lilac with white shaft streaks. The pair patch around the eye is ochre in color. Greater racket-tailed drongos occur throughout Southeast Asia. They are found in India, east of Bangladesh, and south of the Himalayas. They are also found in southern China, on the island of Hainan, and in parts of Indonesia. Greater racket-tailed drongos inhabit a wide variety of habitats. They can be found in moist deciduous forests, in the low hills of the Himalayas, and also in the wide open plains. Populations are most dense in the foothills of the Himalayas. They can be found from sea level to 2,000 meters elevation. Greater racket-tailed drongos generally breed from March to June. Their nests are saucer-like in shape. They are made of intricately intertwined roots and leaves with fine materials lining the inside. Nesting duties, including constructing the nest, incubation, and rearing the young, are shared between males and females. The green bee-eater is found in a variety of habitats throughout its range, from sea level to about 1,600 meters or 5,000 feet in elevation. Its preferred habitat consists of an arid environment, especially in its range in Africa. Green bee-eaters prefer to inhabit open areas with bushes or trees for perching. The green bee-eater is a monogamous bird. They have one brood per year during their breeding season, which is from March until June. The green bee-eater nests in colonies of about 10 to 15 other pairs of birds, and recruit helpers to assist with foraging for food and protection of the nests and nestlings. No courtship displays have been recorded for this species. The red-necked falcon is a rather small but powerful falcon with fast and direct flight. It has a rufous crown, nape, and moustachial stripe. A wide yellow eye ring is quite distinct. Its upper parts are pale gray, and fine barring adorns its white underparts, which are sometimes suffused with gray. This bird of the open country mostly hunts birds on the wing, targeting its prey from a perch, often bringing it down quite close to the ground. The coppersmith barbet is a bird with a crimson forehead and throat, which is best known for its metronomic call that has been likened to a coppersmith striking metal with a hammer. It is a resident found in the Indian subcontinent and parts of Southeast Asia. Like other barbets, they chisel out a hole inside a tree to build their nest. They are mainly fruit-eating, but will sometimes take insects. The coppersmith barbet is entirely arboreal and never descends to the ground. Its food consists almost exclusively of fruits and berries, of which ficus figs form an overwhelming proportion. The attractive blue-throated barbet is a common inhabitant of lowland and hill forests from the Himalayas eastward through mainland Southeast Asia. In parts of its range, for example northeastern India, it is almost ubiquitous, being abundant in a variety of habitats including villages and even urban areas. The blue-throated barbet is most easily observed at fruiting trees where numbers may congregate. The lineated barbet is a large barbet, closely related to the brown-headed barbet, which replaces it in lowland and peninsular India as well as Sri Lanka. The lineated barbet occurs from the Himalayan foothills and eastern India, where its range abuts that of the brown-headed barbet, through northeast India, Bangladesh, and mainland Southeast Asia. The nominate subspecies occurs in Java and Bali. The lineated barbet tends to occupy forest edges as well as more deciduous habitats, and tends to be less common in dense evergreen forest. It is also tolerant of anthropogenic modifications to its habitat, occurring in villages, orchards, and even urban areas where fruiting trees are present. Generally a common bird throughout its range, the lineated barbet even appears to be expanding its range in some areas. The black-crested bulbul is a medium-sized, conspicuous bulbul with permanently erected recurved crest and squared, long tail. The nominate race photo has the head entirely glossy blue-black, bearing mid-crown tuft of elongated feathers forming recurved crest. Upper parts are dark golden olive green, somewhat brighter on lower back and rump. Races vary mainly in plumage tone, those around the Gulf of Siam generally having shorter crest and more noticeable tinge of orange on breast than races from India and Myanmar. The chestnut-tailed starling is a small starling with elongate and hackled feathers on crown, nape, side of face, and throat. The sexes are similar. Juveniles are gray-brown. It is a resident breeder from India to Myanmar, southwest China, Thailand, and Indochina. It is a vagrant in Pakistan and Sri Lanka, a fairly common species overall. The mountain imperial pigeon occurs from northeastern India and Thailand east to south-central China and south to Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia. It inhabits mature primary and secondary evergreen and deciduous forests from foothills up to about 2,300 meters, that is about 8,000 feet, in the Indian subcontinent. It primarily feeds upon a variety of fruits and berries, especially figs and wild nutmegs, as well as occasional buds and young leaves. Streams and small rivers are the preferred habitat of the Eurasian or common kingfisher. The nest is a chamber at the end of a tunnel excavated into a sandy bank. Food is mostly small fish or amphibians caught on dives. During the winter, the Eurasian kingfisher uses a wider range of freshwater habitats, including larger ponds, lakes, and reservoirs, and also estuaries and sheltered seacoasts. White-throated kingfishers are common in agricultural areas, swamps, marshes, near ponds, lakes, in parklands, and in mangrove swamps. In India, they seem to be less reliant on particular aquatic habitats than other kingfishers and can be found in dry deciduous forests in addition to rice paddies, oil palm plantations, drainage ditches, gardens, fish ponds, and even beaches. Though they feed on fish, white-throated kingfishers are not deep divers and do not spend significant amounts of time underwater. The Indian pond heron is a small, drab-brown, or in breeding, pink-buff heron with pure white wings and rump visible in flight. It breeds from South Iran, Pakistan, India, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Nepal, the Laccadive, Maldives, Andaman, and Nicobar Islands. It occurs but has not been documented to breed in Kuwait and the United Arab Emirates. Although a sedentary species, the Indian pond heron may move due to local flood or drought events. Dispersal records include Thailand, Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Belgium. The Indian pond heron is common in its range in India, Nepal, and Myanmar, and is one of the most readily seen herons in those countries. Little information is available on its population numbers. The Indian pond heron uses many types of shallow aquatic habitats, fresh or salt, natural or human-made. The bar-headed goose is one of the most striking of the geese. The name of this very gracefully built bird derives from the two prominent horseshoe-shaped brownish-black bars enhancing the white head. The general color is pale gray. The large wing area of the bar-headed goose, compared with other geese, and other physiological adaptations enable this species to migrate at exceptionally high altitudes over the Himalayas. The breeding area is largely Central Asia, and migration for the winter is to India, Assam, and northern Burma. Wild examples of this species tend to breed in colonies consisting of thousands of birds. Avian predators such as ravens, crows, kites, and sea eagles, as well as foxes, take their toll, but the overall population is possibly increasing. Notably, there are introduced populations of this species in the Netherlands and other parts of Europe. Mature at 2 years old, bar-headed geese normally lay in April to May. Laying may be delayed after a long cold winter. 4 to 6 eggs are incubated for 27 to 30 days. Sometimes they may lay a second clutch. The common redshank is a widespread breeding bird across temperate Eurasia. It is a migratory species, wintering on coasts around the Mediterranean, on the Atlantic coast of Europe from Ireland and Great Britain southwards, and in South Asia. They are wary and noisy birds, which will alert everything else with their loud, piping call. Like most waders, they feed on small invertebrates. Redshanks will nest in any wetland, from damp meadows to salt marsh, often at high densities. They lay 3 to 5 eggs. The white-breasted water hen is a medium-sized, fairly common chicken-like marsh bird found in meadows, ditches, riversides, marshes, as well as parks and farmlands in close proximity to humans, often seen foraging in the open. Adults are dark slaty above and white below, with a rusty patch under the tail. Juveniles are similar but duller in color. This species has a remarkably variable song, consisting of a series of hooting, grunting, or rasping notes or phrases, repeated monotonously, often from an exposed perch. The bronze-winged jacana occurs in India through Southeast Asia to southern China, southern Sumatra, and western Java. It is present all year in southeastern Pakistan. A vegetarian, the bronze-winged jacana feeds extensively on insects, snails, and other invertebrates. Breeding season occurs during monsoons, for example, late July to early September in India. Polyandrous, the males vigorously defend territories against other males, while the females defend their mates' territories against other females. The degree of polyandry depends on both male and female territory sizes, with females generally mating with 1 to 4 males. Clutch size is 3 to 4 eggs. Incubation lasts from 26 to 29 days, during which the male alone incubates the eggs. He also vigorously defends the chicks and raises them by himself. The little cormorant is an all-black, duck-like water bird with a distinctive flattish head and a bill that is sharply hooked at the tip. Smallest of the cormorants found in this region, breeding adults have white plumes on the sides of the head. Like all cormorants, frequently seen swimming with its body low in the water, head and neck pointing upward, and suddenly disappearing underwater to catch fish. The little cormorant often perches upright on a rock, drying itself with outstretched wings. Seen singly or in small groups in inland water bodies. It is similar to the Indian cormorant, but note its smaller size, stouter bill, and the shape of the head, flat on the little cormorant and rounded on the Indian cormorant. The black-headed ibis is a large wader with a white body and bare black head and neck. Males and females look similar and both have grayish tail feathers. It probes into mud and shallow water with its long, down-curved black bill, sometimes submerging its entire head. Found primarily around wetlands, including agricultural fields and occasionally around coastal areas, but also seen foraging in dry fields and human-modified landscapes. The common snipe is a medium-sized wading bird with a long, straight, pointed black bill. It has a brown body with black bars, a striped head and back, and a white belly. The common snipe's legs are shorter than most wading birds' legs. The long, pointed bill of the common snipe helps it probe in the mud for snails, small crustaceans, insects, larvae, and earthworms. It also eats some plant matter. The male arrives at the breeding grounds first and stakes out a territory. To attract a mate, he flies and dives in the air and makes a loud drumming noise as air passes through his tail feathers. The female lays 4 eggs in a grass-lined depression in a grass tussock. The chicks hatch after 18 to 20 days and fledge when they are 19 to 20 days old. The Oriental darter is native to the Indian subcontinent. Anhinga melanogaster can be found as far west as Pakistan and as far north as the Indian-Nepalese border. Indian darters typically live in India, Laos, Myanmar, Cambodia, Sri Lanka, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, and also in the island countries of the Philippines and Indonesia. The Oriental darter is serially monogamous and typically breeds in colonies. Mates build nests of twigs approximately 40 to 50 centimeters in diameter and line them with leaves. These nests are typically in trees overhanging water and may be reused from year to year. Great cormorants are one of the most widespread of cormorant species, with a cosmopolitan distribution. Great cormorants are found throughout Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, and in northeastern coastal North America. Populations in western Atlantic and Europe have increased, with some range expansion in the last 50 years. Great cormorants are found in shallow aquatic habitats, such as the coasts of oceans and large lakes and rivers. Male great cormorants choose and defend a nesting territory. Pairs are monogamous, and pairs may be reunited in subsequent years, with 11% of pairs remaining together over several years in one study. Males use a wing-waving display to attract females to their nest site. We can see that this great cormorant has caught a long-whiskered catfish, and it's having some difficulty trying to swallow it. At this frozen instant, we can see that a gray-headed fish eagle has just tried to steal the long-whiskered catfish from the great cormorant. It was unsuccessful in this undertaking, and so the great cormorant continues trying to swallow this long-whiskered catfish. Returning now to reproductive considerations of this species, we can note that great cormorant pairs may return to the same nest site year after year if they were successful breeding at that site before. They nest in large colonies, often with other species, including cormorants, gulls, and kittiwakes. Colony sizes vary regionally and with subspecies, from a mean of 117 nests to over 9,000. The timing of breeding also varies substantially throughout the range of great cormorants. A single clutch is laid from late April to early July, although clutches laid after June are often abandoned. If a clutch is lost early in the year, the parents will attempt to re-nest. Young are fledged and nesting colonies are deserted by middle of August. Nests are either on the ground or in trees and made of sticks and seaweed lined with grass and feathers. Females lay 1 to 7, typically 3 to 5, chalky bluish green eggs and begin to incubate them gradually. Eggs hatch 28 to 31 days after incubation begins. Young fledge at 45 to 55 days after hatching and leave the nest soon after that. They join communal roosting areas and are continued to be fed by the parents for another 2 to 3 months after fledging. Young males and females typically begin to breed at 3 years of age. And it seems that our great cormorant here has finally swallowed his long-whiskered catfish meal. The gray-headed fish eagle occurs in India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka east through Indochina and the Malay Peninsula to the Greater Sundas, Philippines, and Sulawesi. It inhabits lowland forests, mainly below 300 meters or 1,000 feet, and occasionally to about 1,500 meters or about 5,000 feet. As its name would suggest, the gray-headed fish eagle eats almost exclusively fish. The breeding season of the gray-headed fish eagle in India extends from November through January. The pair builds a huge stick nest located 8 to 30 meters, that is about 30 to 100 feet, up in a tall tree in the forest, near a lake or a sluggish stream. Nests may be used for several years in succession. Clutch size usually ranges from 1 to 2 eggs, occasionally up to 4 eggs. Incubation is attended to by both sexes for a period of 28 to 30 days. Fledging occurs at about 10 weeks. No information on fledgling dependency has yet been reported. Though not yet globally threatened, the gray-headed fish eagle is currently considered near threatened. It is widespread but only locally common, and populations possibly moderately small and believed to be suffering fairly rapid decline as of 2024. The Indian spotted eagle is a large bird of prey in the Accipitridae family. Native to parts of South Asia, the Indian spotted eagle is a vulnerable species whose population figures are slowly declining. Unfortunately, there is little information about the courting and mating rituals of the Indian spotted eagle. However, it is assumed that the male performs a series of aerial displays above the female, who then submits to the male in the nest they have built together. The griffon vulture is a large Old World vulture. It is a rare type of vulture with impressive size and up to a 3-meter, that is 118 inches, wingspan. And it is Europe's second largest bird. It can be seen majestically soaring on thermal currents, searching for food in the warmer, rugged parts of countries. Griffon vultures are a diurnal species and cooperate when foraging by circling a particular area, keeping in sight of another vulture until the food is sighted, at which moment a large number of the birds may alight to feed on the dead animal. This may involve impressive threat displays and fights as each bird works to maintain its place. Griffon vultures are fairly vocal and produce a variety of calls when communicating with others of their species. A drawn-out hissing is made by dominant birds during feeding. When another bird comes too close, a wooden-sounding chattering is produced. And as we can see here, the common duck, known as the mallard, occurs in Kaziranga National Park. Perhaps the most familiar of all duck species, mallards occur throughout North America and Eurasia in ponds and parks, as well as wilder wetlands and estuaries. The male's gleaming green head, gray flanks, and black tail curl arguably make it the most easily identified duck species. Northern pintails are elegant, long-necked ducks with a slender profile. The tail is long and pointed, but it is much longer and more prominent on breeding males than on females and non-breeding males. In flight, the wings are long and narrow. Northern pintails dabble on the surface of the water and filter out seeds and insects with their bills. They also waddle at the edges of wetlands and through agricultural fields, feeding on grain and insects. They form large groups and readily associate with other duck species during the non-breeding season. Whistling ducks are a distinctive group of about 8 species of brightly colored, oddly proportioned waterfowl. The fulvous whistling duck is a mix of rich caramel brown and black, a long-legged and long-necked creature found in warm freshwater marshes across the Americas, Africa, and Asia. In the United States, they are rarely found far from rice fields, which provide both food and an optimal water depth for these gangly birds to forage in. They often roost in trees and were once known as tree ducks. The greylag is the largest and bulkiest of the gray geese of the genus Anser, but it is more lightly built and agile than its domestic relative. It has a rotund, bulky body, a thick and long neck, and a large head and bill. Greylag geese breed on moors with scattered locks, in marshes, fens, and peat bogs, besides lakes on little islands, some way out to sea. They like the dense ground cover of reeds, rushes, heather, bushes, and willow thickets. On their wintering grounds, they frequent salt marshes, estuaries, freshwater marshes, steppes, flooded fields, bogs, and pasture near lakes, rivers, and streams. They also visit agricultural land where they feed on crops, moving at night to shoals and sandbanks on the coast. The forest wagtail is a distinctive wagtail with diagnostic wing and breast patterns. It has a prominent whitish eyebrow with two black crescent-shaped bands on the upper breast. The call is a metallic pink produced in flight. The song is a two-noted tisfee repeated 4 to 5 times. The yellow wagtail likes damp marshes, meadows, and farmland, and spends much of its time running about on the ground, chasing insects disturbed by the feet of livestock. Yellow wagtails nest on the ground or in long grass, using plants, grasses, and stems to build a cup-shaped nest, which they line with fur. They can have up to 2 broods per year, each with 5 or 6 eggs. A summer visitor, they arrive from the African wintering grounds from March onwards. The rose-ringed parakeet is a medium-sized parrot. Rose-ringed parakeets are native to Africa and South Asia. They don't migrate and live in a wide variety of habitats. They can be found in grasslands, savanna, shrubland, rainforests, mangroves, and wetlands. These birds also occur in rural gardens and agricultural areas. Rose-ringed parakeets are social birds. They are active during the day, spending their time foraying, flying about, and resting in the shades of tree canopy during the midday hours. The spotted owlet is a small owl which breeds in tropical Asia from India to Southeast Asia. A common resident of open habitats, including farmland and human habitation, it has adapted to living in cities. They roost in small groups in the hollows of trees or in cavities in rocks or buildings. It nests in a hole in a tree or building, laying 3 to 5 eggs. The spotted owlet is chiefly crepuscular and nocturnal. It is fearless and confiding and regards man with complete unconcern. In many localities, almost every ancient tamarind, banyan, or mango tree holds its resident pair or 2 of these owlets, and one has but to tap on the trunk to bring forth an inquiring little face to the entrance of a hollow. The spot-billed pelican is a large, pale water bird with a hefty pinkish pouched bill marked with diagnostic dark spots on the upper mandible. The head is grizzled with a hint of shaggy crest, and the back of the neck is dark. Rings of bare skin around each eye make this bird appear as though it's wearing glasses. In breeding plumage, the rump, sides, and underwing coverts are salmon pink and the breast ochre yellow, often seen in large lakes and estuaries fishing in groups. Nests in noisy colonies in trees bleached by droppings. The gray-headed lapwing is a large, rather plain lapwing with gray head, neck, and upper breast, black breastband, brown upper parts, and white belly. It breeds in rather undisturbed areas in swamps, near rivers, and rice fields. In winter, it is also found in other wet habitats, such as marshes, riverbanks, wet grassland, rice stubble, and geels. It generally occurs in altitudes below 1,300 meters, or about 4,000 feet. Although no information is available, the gray-headed lapwing probably feeds on insects, worms, and mollusks. It often wades in water while foraging. A gregarious species, especially in winter, when regularly recorded flocks of 40 to 50 birds, sometimes greater than 100, are seen consorting with other shorebird species. The gray-headed lapwing's breeding territory extends from northeastern and eastern China, including Inner Mongolia, central Manchuria, Jiangsu, and Fujian, and neighboring parts of Russia and Japan. In India, it is non-breeding. The metallic lapwing has metallic glossy green upper parts, blackish crest, and bronze scapulars. It has very broad wings, especially in breeding males. Females have less distinctive head patterns and white flanks on the throat. The northern lapwing breeds in a variety of wide-open habitats with short vegetation or bare ground, including various wetlands, heaths, moors, arable and cereal fields, meadows, and hayfields, often with other wading birds, such as black-tailed godwits, common snipes, dunlins, ruffs, and common redshanks. The red-vented bulbul is a dark, sleek, medium-sized bird with a black crest and a white rump. The red color under the tail is often difficult to see. It eats fruit, flower buds, and insects. Conspicuous and sometimes gregarious, it is often seen high in trees or perched on wires in urban and rural areas. The red-vented bulbul generally prefers scrubby edge habitat instead of dense forests. Calls include a variety of chirps and whistles. It is native to South and Southeast Asia, introduced to Kuwait, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Oman, and some Polynesian islands, including Hawaii. The crimson sunbird is a common sight throughout much of its range. This medium-sized sunbird can be found in parks, gardens, and plantations, as well as more pristine open forest and forest edge environments. The male is a bright red with a dark gray belly and iridescent blue cap and mustache. Female is dull olive yellow overall with brighter underparts. High, squeaky, repetitive song is loud but often difficult to locate in high branches. It calls frequently, giving various squeaks and sip notes while foraging. The scarlet minivet is a brilliantly colored forest bird, typically encountered in flocks. Coloration varies significantly throughout its wide distribution, with males ranging from black and crimson, most of mainland Asia, to black and yellow, the southern Philippines, and black and orange, Java and Bali. Females are predominantly gray and yellow, but southern Philippine and western Indonesian birds are black and yellow. In all subspecies, note colored blotches on the wings. Other minivets have cleaner wing patterns, and females yellow forehead. It gives a high-whistled weep notes, often when flying over the treetops. The long-tailed minivet inhabits a wide range of open forest types, including broadleaf and pine forests, light forest, and forest edge. It occurs also in largely deforested areas, groves, wooded cultivation, and roadside avenues. It chiefly eats insects. The breeding season extends from April through June. The nest is built by both sexes, a neat cup of grass stems, fine twigs, rootlets or moss, and cobweb and lichen on the outside. 3 to 4 eggs are laid, although no information is available on incubation and fledging periods. The young are fed by both parents. The greater adjutant is a member of the stork family, Cycloniidae. Its genus includes the lesser adjutant of Asia and the marabou stork of Africa, once found widely across southern Asia, mainly in India, but extending east to Borneo. The greater adjutant is now restricted to a much smaller range with only 3 breeding populations, 2 in India, with the largest colony in Assam, a smaller one around Bhagalpur, and another breeding population in Cambodia. The lesser adjutants, also known as lesser adjutant storks or hair-crested adjutants, are large wading birds that occur naturally in South and Southeast Asia. These birds are generally solitary, except when breeding, at which time they will form loose nesting colonies. They are members of the stork family and are related to the greater adjutants. They were named adjutant by British colonial troops based on their slow and stiff military gait and their habit of standing motionless for long periods of time, reminiscent of officers or adjutants standing at attention. Lesser adjutants are mostly sedentary within their range, except for local movements in response to rainfalls and food availability. The black-necked stork is a distinctive black and white water bird. It stands an impressive 1.3 meters tall. That's about 52 inches tall and has a wingspan of about 2 meters or 6.5 feet. The head and neck are black with an iridescent green and purple sheen. The massive bill, short tail, and parts of the wings are also black, and the long legs are a conspicuous orange to bright red. Black-necked storks inhabit floodplain wetlands, including swamps, watercourses, and dams. They usually forage in water that's about 2 to 12 inches deep, that is 5 to 30 centimeters deep, for vertebrate and invertebrate prey. Black-necked storks build large nests high in tall trees close to water. The trees usually provide clear observation of the surroundings and are at low elevation, reflecting their floodplain habitat. The species comprises 2 subspecies, the Indian and the Southeast Asian, and the Australian and New Guinea. In Australia, black-necked storks are widespread in coastal and subcoastal northern and eastern Australia, as far south as central. I don't need to say that. The greater flameback is a large crested woodpecker with a golden back found in wet tropical and subtropical forests across South and Southeast Asia, separated from the common flameback and other small-billed flamebacks by a much larger bill, a mottled black and white nape instead of a black nape, and a divided black horizontal stripe below the cheek. The Asian openbill stork is a relatively small stork species with a grayish to white body and black wings and tail with a hint of gloss. The Asian openbill gets its name from a distinctive gap in the dull grayish yellow bill. Note the pinkish legs. Asian openbills inhabit wetland habitats including shallow marshes, flooded agricultural fields, and lakes. From a distance, they could be confused with herons, but they can be clearly distinguished from herons by their feeding habits, walking slowly through shallow water. It soars frequently, often in large, dense flocks. Note the extended neck, unlike retracted neck of herons and egrets. The pied falconet is the largest and longest-tailed of the genus Microhyrax falconets, with pointed wings and square-ended tail. It is glossy black above and white below, lacking any rufous but has variable black flanks patch. The pied falconet preys on large insects, particularly butterflies, dragonflies, and grasshoppers. It also eats small to medium-sized birds. Laying usually occurs March through May. Adults are seen feeding young in September in India. Clutch size is unknown, but 3 to 4 fledglings are usually observed in a nest. It is well documented that adults aggressively defend the nest. The rufous-bellied eagle is a small aerial eagle with short bushy crest, longish wings and tail, and feathered tarsi. Its preferred habitat includes evergreen and moist deciduous forest, mainly in foothills, at 300 to 1,200 meters. That's about 1,000 to 4,000 feet in elevation. The rufous-bellied eagle feeds on birds and mammals, for example, squirrels. Some rather large birds are taken by the rufous-bellied eagle, including kalij pheasants, jungle fowl, spurfowl, and pigeons. A very aerial hunter, it captures prey on or near the ground or treetops after spectacular stoops reminiscent of peregrine falcons. It also still hunts from a perch. Not a great deal is known about breeding in this species. However, it is known that it nests from December to March in Sri Lanka and southern India, February in the Philippines, somewhat later in northern India. Large nests up to 1.2 meters or 5 feet across and 60 centimeters or 24 inches deep are built by the pair in the crown of a large tree in dense forest. These are lined with green leaves. Display flight involves repeated dives with wings closed and also shivering of wings. Clutch size is 1 egg, which is incubated by both sexes. The pair vigorously defends the nest against humans. Pelicans fish eagle is a pale-headed raptor of inland marshes and lakes. It tends to be uncommon and thinly distributed throughout its range. The adult is dark brown above with a paler belly and a dirty gray head. When in flight from below, a broad white band on the dark tail is the most eye-catching feature. Juveniles have an all-dark tail but have 2 bright white panels on the undersides of the wingtips. Pelicans fish eagle inhabits rivers and lakes, freshwater wetlands and pools, and is often found in arid areas of steppe. In winter, it may visit seas, and in Arabia has been recorded at reservoirs and in littoral habitats. Although, as its name would suggest, Pelicans fish eagle forages mainly on fishes, it also consumes water birds, rodents, lagomorphs, frogs, reptiles, and insects. The gray-backed shrike is found in forest edge, farmland, and plains. This adaptable and elegant small shrike is a common sight across much of its range. Gray crown and black contrast sharply with the white throat, black mask and wings, and bright orange sides. It is noticeably smaller than the long-tailed shrike, with which it shares its range. Unlike that species, the gray-backed shrike lacks orange on the back. It regularly perches on exposed perches such as telephone lines, posts, and snags. The song is musical and variable, a series of buzzy, whistled, and warbled notes. The crested serpent eagle is found throughout much of Southeast Asia. It prefers to spend its time in primary forests, forest edge, well-wooded hills near agricultural fields and plantations, rocky hilltops, gallery forests, savanna, mangroves, and even near villages. It is most often observed from sea level up to about 2,000 meters or 7,000 feet, though researchers have documented this eagle at elevations around 3,000 meters or 10,000 feet or higher. As its name would suggest, the crested serpent eagle is primarily a snake hunter. It seems to particularly favor tree snakes, but its diet isn't limited to serpents. It will also take lizards, frogs, toads, mammals, eels, small birds, termites, and large earthworms. In order to catch its prey, it waits patiently on a perch until something good to eat passes by. Then it will drop down to snatch it from the ground or pluck it from vegetation. The brown hawk owl is a dark brown, medium-sized hawk-like owl with a round head and no ear tufts. It is also known as the Oriental hawk owl or the brown bubuk. The brown hawk owl feeds primarily on large insects, such as beetles and grasshoppers, but it will also consume frogs, lizards, small birds, mice, and occasionally small insectivorous bats or crabs. They hunt at dusk using a perch on a tree stump or post to look for prey. They have been observed jumping up to take a passing insect in the claws and hawking insects in the air like a nightjar. The brown hawk owl is found in forest, well-wooded country and groves of trees, particularly around water and bordering forest streams or water courses, and often closely associated with human habitation. The Asian barred owlet is a small owl species with a rounded head and no ear tufts. It is also known as the cuckoo owlet. The Asian barred owlet is generally a diurnal bird, often found perched on bare branches or dead tree stumps in full sunlight, or hunting during the day. While it may be vocal at any time of the day, it is most vocally active at dawn and for a couple of hours after sunrise. Breeding season is from April to June in Nepal, April and May elsewhere. Fledglings have been found in early July. The nest is an unlined, natural hole in a tree or a suitable abandoned barbet or woodpecker hole. The owl may kill woodpeckers or barbets before taking over their nest hole. Jungle mynas are omnivores that feed mainly on insects, fruit, and seeds, for which they forage mainly on the ground and often in the company of other myna species. They also take berries from low bushes such as latana and take nectar from large flowers borne on trees. However, as can be seen here, the jungle myna also perches on large grazing mammals, picking ectoparasites off of their bodies. Thus, there exists a symbiotic relationship between the jungle myna and certain large mammals, such as this Asian one-horned rhinoceros, that is enjoying having parasitic insects removed from its skin. The jungle mynas benefit from the nutrition gained by eating these insects.